Welcome to episode 4 of the build diary of my Mazda 626. This episode will go through the engine mounts, gearbox mounts and most of the tunnel. So yeah, hope you enjoy. Here's the completed gearbox crossmember. So with this engine and gearbox I decided I'd solid mount it. Few reasons. I find it a bit easier. Being a mainly a track car, I'm not too worried about a bit more vibration to the car. And the other thing with this RX-8 gearbox, they actually don't have a specific sort of gearbox mount to them. In the RX-8, I've never seen one, but I'm assuming they're like the RX-7 with a power brace that connects the gearbox and diff together. So there's these two 14mm bolts at the bottom of the gearbox, so that middle plate there bolts straight to that, and then the outer plates just bolt up to the recesses from the original gearbox in the 626. For some reason there was 2 bolts one side, 1 bolt the other, which is kind of weird. Normally there's either 1 aside or 2 aside, but yeah, it is what it is. The reason I didn't just make this out of one bit of flat plate is that the bosses that the crossmember bolts up to are horizontal with the car, but obviously because the engine and gearbox is on a lean, they wouldn't be in the same plane. So you can kind of see maybe there that the gearbox plate actually is on a different angle to the crossmember plate. So if I'd have made it out of one bit of steel, I would have had to try to put a bend in it, which would have been quite a mission. So this was the easiest way, really. Got the engine mounts mocked up. I've had to make a breastplate to suit and some mounts off the crossmember. It's all just sitting there and tacked up at the moment. There's obviously quite a lot of room between the crossmember and the front of the motor, so I've tried to sort of share the overhang between the mount obviously coming forward and the breastplate coming back. There'll be some reinforcement under the engine mounts off the Crossmember. I've even though I've solder mounted, I've actually used these plastic spacer mounts. Couple of reasons. It means that if I need to fine tune the height at a later date, I can just either make taller ones or machine those shorter. It also makes it a bit easier to get the motor in there, having that gap to start. And if I do figure later down the track that I actually don't like it solid mounted, I can just replace that with a rubber mount and remake a gearbox Crossmember. This motor is actually I think a Series 6 motor out of a RX-7, but it's had a early front cover with the front cover mounts on it put on it. There's actually those holes in there in the centre plate is actually for mid-mounting these motors from factory, and that would have actually worked perfect because it's right by the Crossmember. But come around this side and there's nothing there, and the mounts for this side are actually bolted up through under the sump, and there isn't the room to do that on this, so just using the old school way of front cover mounting. Well, time to attack this gearbox tunnel a bit better. As you can see, and as I said before, I just roughly hacked it out just to get the engine and gearbox sitting where I wanted it to sit. And now that I've got it all bolted in with the engine and gearbox mounts done, I'm going to cut it out nicely and build a new tunnel in there. So I thought I'd run you through the way I like to do gearbox tunnels. There's obviously numerous ways you can do it, but this is the way I like. I find it quite easy and gives a good end result. With what we're doing here, we only really need to raise the tunnel. The gearbox isn't really it isn't too wide for the hole anyway, so we don't need to make the tunnel wider, we just need to make it higher. So you can see up the front there, need to create some room for the clutch fork there, which is just hitting the firewall as it is. The engine and gearbox isn't too far back, but one consideration is always to sort of give it enough room so if you need to take the gearbox off in place, if you have the tunnel too close to the gearbox, you can never really slide it back far enough. So yeah, make sure we've got enough clearance there. If you're doing a sole road car, you need to consider clearance between heater boxes and center consoles and whatnot in the dash. In this it's not going to be such a drama. I'm not actually sure if I can retain the heater box. I will if I can, but this tunnel's just going to have to be where it is, so if the heater box doesn't fit, I'll have to either leave it out or try and make something. Anyway, so this is how I go about marking out how to cut. I always keep things like old 5-inch cut-off discs. Sometimes you need small ones, but for good things like this, if you ever want to mark out some radiuses, I quite often just lay a disc up and trace around it. I haven't actually done that right there, but that was just a rough sort of line I'd drawn. But yeah, they're accurate, they're always around, easy to trace around. Quite often you can't get a compass or a dividers out to describe my line, so yeah, anything around will work, won't it? The other consideration, so we've marked out roughly where we want to cut the front of it. If I lay a straight edge up there, close enough, I can pretty much get one plane from front to back, roughly about there. there'll obviously be quite a big gap there between the tunnel and the gearbox, but as I said, it's not a road car. Well, I don't need to consider clearance between the dash and centre consoles and whatnot, so I'll most likely just make the tunnel just in that same plane, which makes the folding a hell of a lot easier. And when it comes to cutting down the sides, this is the trick that I like to do. If I can squeeze in here and get a bit better shot of it. So typically, and I've done this before, you'll get your grinder out, cut along there somewhere where you think's about right, cut it all the way off, and what you find is when you look down on the tunnel this way, you end up with a cut that is wavy, follows the ridges in the side, follows all the humps, and it then becomes a mission to bridge that gap between what you've made and the original part. You end up pushing the original tunnel in or out to meet it, or bring in the bit you've made in or out. So what I like to do, if I can see, you can see this, is I'll lay a straight edge front to back along the sides somehow how I want it, and this is difficult, but scribe down that so in a vertical plane it's a straight line, and then when you actually come to the side here, once you've scribed it, the line will wiggle like that up and down following those contours. And so when you actually come time to cut it with a grinder or whatever, instead of cutting in the side like that, cut down like this. It's quite difficult, but what you end up getting is when you look down on it is near enough to a dead straight line, and it makes it really easy to then make a new tunnel, and it makes it really easy to push any gaps in if there is some small ones, and it makes it easy to weld it in. Yeah, you'll probably get a better idea of it once I cut it and fold up a new tunnel section. Here's the revised cut hole for the tunnel. As you can see, like I said, pretty reasonably straight front to back, viewed from the top and from the side, up and down all over. But yeah, so what it means is I can effectively fold it up, round it across and down, and that'll fit snugly in that hole. Going to taper it from that radius at the front down to pretty much nothing down here, so you'll sort of see what it's like once I roll it and put some cool bead rolls in it. So I've got plenty of clearance for the clutch fork. Hopefully, well, should be plenty to pull the gearbox off in place. So I cut it with my trusty 5" and then up around the bow housing there with tin snips. Just bead rolled this decorative feature and also helps with rigidity, so that'll be the centre of the gearbox tunnel. Gear stick will sort of be right there just behind it. Yeah, looks good once it's all folded and put in place. So there's the folded up tunnel pushed in place, just to show you guys how it looks like. It's a pretty good fit really. So what I have to do is just go around and grind up around the body just so it's nice and clean to weld, cut the gear stick hole, and what I'll do is I'll just trace around where the new bit meets the original body, trace around there, and then I'll sort of cut 10mm away from that line just to give it a little bit of overhang and weld it in place. Nice and easy. I've come across my first dilemma. I mentioned maybe in the first episode that I was pretty keen to run these, well not these ones, but run some widened steel wheels, and now that I've got the factory Nissan brakes all on there, I've realised that the brakes don't clear the wheel, which is one thing I didn't think was going to happen. It's obviously on there at the moment, but it's rubbing as it is. So my option really is to either find some steel wheels that fit, which I don't think it's going to be that easy to find, or widen some alloys. I did say that I didn't really want to go down that route money wise, but it looks looking like it might just have to be that. Not that I'm complaining. I'd love to see these SSR Mark IIIs widened out and put on, but the dilemma is with these is that, unlike most 3-piece wheels that you can get new lips for, these 13-inch SSRs are proving quite hard to find lips. So I'll see what I can do, see if I can find someone that can make some. If they can, it's not too pricey, I'll go there in that route. Thanks for watching episode 4. Next episode, probably get round to the seats, which I put off, and the one part of the car that I sort of haven't worked out yet is I'm going to have to get a diff for it. I have to buy a diff. You have to do some measuring and see what the track of now that the Nissan stuff's in it, try and find a diff that's about the same width. Hopefully something you don't have to change the brakes on, and well, ideally not have to re-drill it to fit the stud pin, but that's not really a drama, so we'll just have to do some hunting, see if we can find a diff that's going to work. Cheers, thanks for watching.